Tuning 2. This is the second in a series of 2 videos on how to tune your instrument. This video is about the more advanced skill of tuning with your pegs, and I'm going to put this disclaimer here again like I did in the first video. Unless you're pretty sure of yourself and know that you can get this correct, please don't use your pegs unless you're really sure. It's very easy to break a string tuning with the pegs. You barely need to turn a peg in order for the pressure to change quite a bit, the tightness to change quite a bit. And this is the part where a lot of people end up breaking their strings, and we don't want to do that. You're going to have to buy new strings yourself, and your parents won't appreciate having to buy new strings for you all the time. So if you run into a problem and you're not ready for this video, please contact me, call me, and set up a meet where I can meet your parents to fix your instrument if school is not in session, or wait until you can find me at school in order to fix that for you so that you don't end up breaking something. But without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing I want you to know about tuning with the pegs is a peg is a conical bore. And what I mean by that is on the handle side, it's actually wider, and as it gets close to the other end of the peg, it gets thinner and thinner and thinner, and that is how it wedges in the peg box. The peg and the peg hole in the peg box are the same conical bore. So what that means is, as you are turning and pushing a peg, that is going to seize into the conical peg, and the conical bore of the peg hole is going to seize together and stick. So no pushing while you're turning, no wedging, and no tuning, and your string just goes zzz. Okay, so you can't just turn the peg and then push it in. You have to turn and press at the same time. It's like a screw with no threads. You need to make sure there's pressure going in as you turn it. So that is very, very important. A lot of beginners try and turn it, they get it just right, and then they try and push it in, and it just goes zzz and comes loose, and the peg spins and comes off sometimes. So be careful. You have to push and turn to make sure it works. Another very important thing about pegs is they wedge pretty tightly sometimes, and if you're trying to get it loose in order to tune it, you want to make sure you're turning to loosen it in order to break it loose from the wedge instead of turning tighter. Because if you're torquing and torquing and turning and turning, and all of a sudden it goes tighter and it slips and you go too far, you've just broken a string. So be really careful with that. If it's stuck, loosen it. Even if you need to tune it higher, make sure it's loose by turning it looser until the peg comes loose, and then you can turn it higher up to get it in tune. Okay? So a very important part about tuning pegs is you barely need to turn them in order to create a very different tension. So if I have this string that's totally loose, I can get it pretty tight with just a half turn, from totally loose until it's pretty tight with a half turn. So be really careful. It's not like a guitar tuner where you turn, 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 turn in order to change it. These are very, very finicky. And it's true with violins, violas, and cellos. Bass has geared tuners and no fine tuners on the tailpiece, and they function more like a guitar tuner. It's a little harder to go too far on a bass, because if you're watching an electronic tuner and making sure that you're coming up to that pitch, it's really hard to go a whole octave higher and think you're tuning to the pitch. It's a little safer tuning bass strings, but you can break it if you really try, so be careful. So in order to tune with the pegs, we're going to do the same thing that we did with the fine tuners. Now, as you get better at this, there are people that hold their instrument and they'll tune with the pegs, or they'll reach around and they'll tune the fine tuners while they're bowing. But since you're just starting on this, we're going to do this with plucking while you're tuning. And you're going to want to continually pluck so that as you're turning, you hear that pitch. You will often see me in class using a tuning fork in order to tune. And I strongly suggest it because it helps tune your ear, your aural, A-U-R-A-L, by ear skills, to make sure that you're getting to that pitch and you get to the right pitch. You listen to what the fork sounds like, and then you match the A string to it. And then you go 5 notes apart, and you can hear that from the ant song, ba-da-da-da-dum, or whatever it is. I'm not in tune, so... but then you can hear the D string 5 off of that and the other string. So real quick, what are these called? Tuning fork primer. You always hold the tuning fork just by the handle. Do not touch this forky part, the U shape. It will stop vibrating if you touch it. So you hold it by the handle. You're going to hit it sideways on one of the times, not flat on both of them at a time. One of the times on something soft hard, like your knee, maybe if you're wearing sneakers, the sole of your shoe, but don't hit it against something hard like a music stand. It gets clangy like that, and it's just a terrible sound. And even if it's hard enough metal, you could dent your tuning fork or mess it up. So hit it on your knee, and you could just hold it up to your ear and I can hear it, but also the ball on the other end of the handle, without touching the U part, if I put that ball against the very top of my bridge, the bridge does what it's supposed to and amplifies vibration like the strings, and you can hear that better. So this is an A, and I'm going to hear the A in my head. Then, a lot of times I'll turn this around if I'm plucking and pluck it with my thumb. I'm pretty close to that A, so I'm going to make it out of tune. And remember, I'm looking for that A. So I got closer. Now I'm going to double check. I'm pretty close. So once I'm that close, I'm going to go to my electronic tuner and I'm going to finish the job, because fine tuners are more fine and they're easier to get exactly right with the fine tuners than it is with the peg. One more thing with the pegs, it's hard to start and stop with the pegs, so a smooth yum is much easier than yum. It's a lot harder to start and stop because of the way you're wedging it. So we're going to go to the online metronome tuner. I know you can use that with your Chromebooks, which is why I'm using it here. And I'm going to look at my A, pluck the A, and I'm a little low, so I'm going to bring it up with my fine tuners. Oop, I plucked too loud. You want to pluck gently also. And like I said in my previous video, sometimes a string can get stuck a little bit or stick on the bridge or the nut of the instrument. So just a little tiny tug, I'm not yanking on it, just a little tug will make sure that it's not stuck, and it was a little bit stuck. So I brought it back up to an A. All right, so now going to the D, if I'm tuning by ear, I would go yum ba da 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 dum. And that's very, very low, so I'm hearing that D in my head. If I'm using the electronic tuner, you can see it's a C sharp. I need to go higher, higher for a D. And now I'm too high, so I'm going to back it off and then tighten it to seat it. And I'm pretty close. I'm going to finish the rest with my fine tuners. So plucking with my hand. And I'm going to get close enough. I said this in the first video, I'll say it again. The strings exert amount of pressure on the neck of the instrument. So if you're tuning all of your strings, it's a good habit to get into, to go through all 4 strings and get them close, and then go back and retune it and fine-tune, adjust, because the pressure from one string and another being tuned may have knocked the one that was already in tune slightly out. So I'm going to keep going. Got my D. Get my G, and that actually, I'm probably close enough for fine tuners, but I'm going to push and turn. Get it close. And then little tug on the string and fine tuners. Now, as a violinist, you still need to tune the E, but I'm going to keep going on this weirdo viola with 5 strings and tune the C. Now I got way too high. Okay, that's a lot closer. So now I'll finish with a fine tuner. Pretty close. And then the E string for violinists. Oop, too much. And that says D sharp, so I need to go up higher. Be very careful with the E string violinist. This is the one that's most likely to snap. So very little bit of turning. And I'm listening as I'm going. So that I can get close. And if you're, pretty close on that thing, use your fine tuner to finish it. Don't try to get exact with the peg. It's really hard to be exact with the pegs, especially on that super thin E string. Ooh, went too high. And then I would go and tune all the rest again to make sure they're exact. So that's basically what tuning is. It's not a super hard concept, but it does take a lot of practice. And tuning with the pegs is much more aural, A-U-R-A-L, with the ear skill than fine tuners. Fine tuners, you can really use an electronic tuner. You can use an electronic tuner as you're tuning with the pegs, but having a good ear and being able to hear that pitch and get to it is really, really helpful when you're tuning with the pegs. If you're not comfortable with that, find me and I will try and fix it for you. So that's tuning with the pegs. Happy tuning. Be careful so you don't have to buy extra strings, and practice a lot. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks.